Welcome, everyone. This is Greg Rock, and on behalf of BPM Institute and the folks at Savvion, I'd like to welcome you to today's roundtable addressing clinical trial challenges and opportunities with BPM. As many of you know, in addition to our roundtable series, BPM Institute promotes knowledge sharing and networking amongst our members and the BPM community at large through our website, our conference series, our training programs, and our various member publications. And you can find additional details about those on our main site. I've got a few quick housekeeping items, and then we're going to get right underway with today's roundtable. First and foremost, I want to thank the folks at Savvion for hosting today's roundtable and in inviting Roy Devine, Associate Vice President from Patney Life Sciences, to join us and to share his expertise in their areas around drug safety and clinical solutions. We'll have two presenters today. Roy is going to be joined by Sharatna Pat, Director of Product Management at Savvion, and both gentlemen have agreed to give us a little time at the end of the slide deck for some Q&A. So without further delay, I'd like to get underway with today's roundtable. Challenges that are facing the life sciences industry are really popular these days. You hear a lot about it on the news. From the expiration of patents, escalating cost of clinical trials, and increasingly stringent new regulatory guidelines. The folks at Savvion have a lot of expertise in this area, and we're going to be listening to both their solution set, but also the experience of Roy Devine, who, as I mentioned, is with Patney Life Sciences, Drug Safety, and Clinical Solutions. And Roy brings 19-plus years of experience to us today, and will fill us in on the latest developments in the area of life sciences and how BPM is helping those organizations to improve their time to market and their efficiency. So without further delay, I'd like to turn things over to Roy Devine.
Thanks, Greg. What I'd like to do is focus on some of the challenges that are facing clinical research today and how we can actually drive the opportunities with a good business process management solution. Clinical trials today. I think we're all aware that just to level set, total expenditure in 2008 was approximately $72 billion. That was for your clinical research, your basic research functions and those activities. 40% of that was in the clinical trials component itself, or about $30 billion. Half the time spent on clinical research is taken up by trying to start your trials, recruit your patients, get your investigators, make sure that you have the appropriate demographics of the different sites, make sure that the time that it takes for them to bring in patients is going to be manageable and you can bring them to closure quickly. As with everything, but nowhere so much as with R&D, time is money. 70% of the clinical trials that miss deadlines are identified in industry surveys as missing their deadlines because of trial management inefficiencies, lack of recruitment, inability to get product where it needs to be, closeouts taking too long, other activities in those regards. Prices vary, obviously. On average, a phase 3 trial will cost you anywhere from $35,000 to $100,000 a day in delays to close out the study. Some of your phase 4 trials, your mega trials, can run in the hundreds of thousands of dollars a day. The clinical trials themselves constitute, as I said, about 40% of the overall R&D budget. One of the things that is not just in the raw numbers of the daily burn for research, but one of the other issues is the lack of a naive patient population in the U.S. anymore. There's about 80,000 trials going on at any given time in the U.S., according to CenterWatch. That means there's a lot of people doing a lot of research with the same patient populations. Being able to do good science requires that you have patients that haven't been in 10 other trials. That's increasing the pressure for globalization and the ability to utilize multi-centric studies across borders to get your data in patients that haven't already been affected by other products in the disease categories you're looking at. This increases the complexity and cost associated with bringing your data back and forth. Then on the next slide, I want to talk about some of the other additional challenges in today's solutions that are there. Pharmaceutical companies have a significant number of applications that they use to support different parts and different aspects of clinical research data collection and management. Your remote data capture systems, those companies that are still using paper-based systems, the remote data capture or the transfer of those data files on paper first to CRFs, and then entry into a data collector at a different site. The data management system itself, the clinical trial management system that tracks site registrations and identifications, the investigators' databases, procurement systems that track payments and other activities, clinical supply systems or IVRS systems that handle randomization and drug shipments. All these different systems have been developed over a period of years for these companies, and in a lot of cases they do their specific task very well. What they don't do well, however, is integrate. The disparity between these systems causes significant problems in data quality as well as in timeliness of productivity. Most of the gaps are manual. You have information that's in your IVRS system, and reconciling that with the data that's in your clinical data management system is usually done by a team of people that are working on it. We also are looking at trials that extend over years. We have experience working with 2 endpoint studies that were 5 and 7 years apiece. Needless to say, the supporting technologies around those solutions changed, or those trials changed over those 7 years. So the ability to bring in data from legacy systems and integrating it into your new data management systems are complex and time-consuming. I think we're all aware in the industry as well that we're no longer monolithic companies. There's a lot of what I call co-opetition going on. Pharmaceutical company A and pharmaceutical company B create a joint venture to work on a particular therapeutic area, on a particular drug they have, while still competing in other areas. So the ability to manage those alliances and have cross-organizational flows of data in a secure way, the ability that the data that you're working on can be shared effectively across organizational borders, but additional data isn't available. That's key to the activities. And again, that integration point between the different systems is one of the places that a lot of the solutions have lacked, and where a good business process management framework can be the glue that connects those different systems together. One of the primary things that's lacking in some of the legacy systems in a lot of the companies, and I've seen for a lot of my clients, is the inability to see the whole picture, the actual portfolio or product portfolio level management of data, the ability to know how the multiple trials interact together and how the data is looking, and do real-time evaluations of the data that comes in. Those companies that do have those type of real-time abilities to view the data have a significant competitive advantage of those that don't. Some of those operational efficiency challenges, again, would drive towards the fact that there's a significant waste of effort of bringing the data from one system to another. The same data that resides in your clinical trial management system also resides in your clinical data management system, also resides in your safety system, in your regulatory affairs system, in your grant payment system. The investigator at a given site has his identification and location information probably in 9 separate systems in most of the companies that I've worked with. One of the problems with this is not only having just the redundant data being that you have to manage it, but also every time you have multiple sources of data, you have opportunities for regulatory risk. Data redundancies that can be out of compliance require reconciliations. It's a timely and costly function, and it adds no value to have the same data in multiple places. The primary function of a well-oiled process management solution or data management system is to have a single point of truth for the data, so that you can evaluate it and make rapid decisions based on the best information at hand. What are the requirements to reduce time and cost of clinical trials? primary one, again, is the visibility, the ability to have a better control and be able to manage the tasks effectively and to make time-based decisions. One example of a company that successfully did it with a homegrown process management solution was working on a new formulation of a major drug. Turned out about halfway through the first phase of their pivotal trials, they found that the new formulation was not more effective and actually had a worse safety profile. So they immediately amended all, I think, 13 protocols that were running at that time, redistributed the product, rerouted the information, and were able to capitalize on that research data and continue the research on the other line of the product, saving about $400 million in the overall engagement of that compound research that year. There's another situation where an additional company was working on a mega trial that had about 50,000 patients in it, and they were looking for endpoints, and the endpoints were coming in, but they weren't tracking them effectively, and they were waiting for the adjudication results and other activities. Turned out that it took them about 60 days extra to find out that they had the information they needed to be able to close out the trials. At a run rate of $150 million a year, that was about $500,000 a day, or $30 million wasted on what they could have been spending it on more effective means. The primary requirements for reducing all these costs, again, are to be able to monitor the effectiveness of your regulatory processes and use standard practices where possible. To be able to leverage the existing systems you have. You don't want to have to reinvest in all your IT infrastructure. You want to be able to maximize your investment you already have. So use your IVRS system that's effective in doing its job. Just link it into the other systems so that you can bring the data together and give it to you in a holistic pattern. The other point that I think needs to be stressed here is that adaptive research is a key necessity in today's environment. You need to be able to identify trends and potential signals and adjust research to effectively go after the data that's available. So the ability to enforce and monitor policies are critical, but the ability to manage the realities of research where things happen. You have to do amendments. You have to do protocol changes. Be able to track them and know who's doing what to who where in a timely manner is critical. And the flexibility of a solution that provides that will give you significant value over time. And again, as I mentioned previously, we don't work in a vacuum. We have to work with our external partners, and we have to participate in the research in a secure manner. That includes, be it you a CRO or a site management organization or a research institute itself, sponsor, multiple sponsors in a joint venture situation, or the regulatory agencies themselves. The ability to track the information with a full audit trail of its entire life cycle, allow colleagues to interact in a virtual environment across organizational borders can significantly speed your process. Now, the next slide I want to talk about a little bit about what are companies looking for. I think it's sort of motherhood and apple pie, but to talk about the fact that we're all looking for a better return on our clinical research investments. But it's very true. There's greater level of scrutiny from the CFOs as well as the chief medical officers for a lot of the companies. There's a lot of discussions in the strategic planning groups of let's look at where the most effective utilization of our research dollars will be placed. So there are times when multiple therapeutic lines have to compete against each other to see which one gets funding for the year based on their commercial application and how effective they can bring the data in. So the quicker they can get a response to what the ROI is going to be on a particular therapy line, the more likely it is that they're going to get support from their finance department. In general, they're looking for better insight into the trial activities, to know exactly what the status is at any given point, to see the data in a near-time realm, to be able to see how Site 1 versus Site 4 is doing from a recruitment perspective, to see how many data change requests are required for given trials, to profile the different sites, to make sure the demographics of the patients are being appropriately managed and that the data is moving in an effective manner. To use this as a proactive view from a safety and surveillance perspective as well, to be able to see the data as it comes in so that real-time decisions can be made instead of waiting until after the trials are closed. In general, they are also looking for greater flexibility in trial management. Again, to the adaptive research model, to be able to handle multiple protocol amendments at the different centers in a trial, to allow deviation of a certain set of sites to go after a particular line of inquiry that's found in an initial set of studies. Those activities are greatly enhanced by the ability to have a process modeling tool and a process management tool that provides the ability to actually aggregate this data to see it. And again, I think we all are aware that better control of our data is key. We can leverage the systems we have. We can use the data in its raw form and make sure that information that's created once is used many times, which allows for, obviously, process efficiencies and better cost savings overall. Now, how can business process management help? Business process management solutions can significantly increase the control, visibility, and understanding of business processes. These are, in most companies, these are hundreds and hundreds of people in your research divisions with 30 and 40 applications running data simultaneously. The complexity of these processes are very difficult for everyone to see. One client I used to work with had 11 transformations of a given data point from the time it was collected at a data collector through the time that information was put out into a submission. They spent a long, arduous amount of time and a significant amount of money in building their own process modeling that told them where that data point lived in the life of its process. If they had a effective BPM tool, they would have been able to do that a lot quicker and would have been able to see any of the issues with the data in a much timelier fashion. BPM provides for consistent and documented, which is critical in the regulatory world, business process solution. Gives you a framework to work from. It allows you to store and have a single repository for the information associated with the trials. It also provides the ability to reuse effective frameworks and models. You can link related business processes and reuse them as process templates as well as standard profiles. For example, like have your entire regulatory binder for a particular site pre-built that has all the components that are necessary and have them all in one spot so that you don't have to track it down when you're trying to build your compilation for your submission at the end. In general, an effective use of BPM can increase your ROI significantly. Speaking of ROI, just to give everybody a taste of the realm of possibilities we're talking about here, I'll give you a scenario that I worked on, a mega trial that had enrolled 50, I have a typo, I apologize. It was 50,000 patients across 27 countries, and there was about 400 sites. It was a 7-year endpoint study, and the annual budget was about $158 million a year. The trial was effective, but the management of it was not. The recruitment and the other activities took approximately 10 weeks extra. than it should have. The other piece, there were multiple sites that had to get closed out because they weren't recruiting effectively, they didn't manage them the way they should have, and they had difficulties in the startup. That effectively cost the company about $500,000 a day in additional cost for running that trial. Another case study was delayed about 60 days because of communications, and that cost the company about $30 million because of communication effectively. I think I mentioned it earlier, but there was also a high-dose filing of a particular compound that was brought in 90 days ahead of schedule, ahead of its competition going out in the market, which brought an additional revenue of about $36 million a day for the company. Now, like in every sales approach, your results may vary. Those are not indicative of what you'll get in every single opportunity, but there is a significant amount of return on investment available if your information is managed effectively through a good business process management solution. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Shraddha, who's going to walk you through the Savvion Life Sciences Foundation and how the solution can help you address some of these challenges.
Okay, thank you, Roy. I'm very happy to present and show you how Savvion and Putney can address these clinical trial challenges. First, here's a little summary about Savvion. We're a privately held and profitable company located in the heart of Silicon Valley, specifically Santa Clara, California, with a subsidiary in India. We are a leader in business process management, also known as BPM software, products, and solutions, including vertical solutions in the banking, telecom, and life sciences. Obviously, today we will talk about life sciences and BPM-enabled solutions or clinical operations. Now, Savvion launched its first BPM product in 1999, and since has been a leader in this space. Over the years, Savvion has introduced multiple innovations in this space and defined the BPM market as we know it today. So Savvion has always been positioned as a leader by various independent research firms, including Gartner and Forrester. We have many key customers in life sciences and healthcare, including J&J, Kaiser Permanente, and Apria Healthcare. What values does Savvion bring to its customers? Well, there are 5 areas that Savvion excels in bringing value to our customers. Roy touched on this a little bit earlier. From a visibility point of view, it's critical to have visibility into your business processes and monitor what's going on in the business. Timely notifications are critical to staying away from a really bad situation or avoiding huge fines and liabilities if your system deviates out of regulatory compliance. Savvion lets you create metrics to measure what is important to you and monitor them from a dashboard. The dashboards, like the R&D dashboards, not only inform you when things go wrong, but also let you know probable causes and recommend corrective actions to avoid additional problems. Agility. Organizations don't have the luxury of 12 to 18-month software upgrade cycles. Business conditions can change in a matter of weeks or a couple months, and the processes that run businesses need to adapt just as quickly. A BPM solution must provide the change management functionality to accomplish this. So, with Savvion BPM, managers can quickly evaluate what is needed and make process changes on the fly. This is very important. Modifications can be made by updating the rules or the process parameters directly from the web portal without IT involvement. Changes requiring an update in process design can be implemented in days rather than months. Efficiency. So to maximize efficiencies, your business processes need to be lean and mean. That means no wasted time and effort. So knowing your processes, where are the redundant steps, where are the bottlenecks, understanding the processes and deploying solutions removes these wasteful business activities and eliminates what we call shadow processes that create these inefficiencies. BPM, or business empowerment. People closest to the process are the most knowledgeable about it. It is critical that business users are engaged in all process management and improvement activities. The tools they utilize to describe their processes and document requirements must be suited for their use. So business empowerment is all about giving business users the capability to make quick decisions on their own. With Savvion, business users can define the key performance indicators of their business and monitor them without turning to IT for help. Savvion's BPM change management capabilities enable business users to quickly and cost-effectively update process applications on their own without involving IT resources. Return on investment, ROI. Roy mentioned this a little bit earlier today. Companies must be aware of the investments as never before. As a business executive, you need to know what business efficiencies your investment in BPM will bring and how quickly you will realize ROI. Savvion's BPM system supports all your usage scenarios, eliminating the need to search for point solutions for every process needs. So let's see how Savvion delivers these values for the life sciences industry, especially in the areas of clinical operations. We're very excited to offer a BPM-enabled solution with the help from Roy and Potney. From a high level, there's the business process management on one layer, life sciences foundation on top of the BPM layer, then customized processes, systems, and solutions sits on top of the foundation. The life sciences foundation will help you quickly build a clinical operation management system that allows you to manage, optimize, and automate operations across the clinical stages in areas like study startup, study conduct, and study closeout. You heard the term adaptive trials. We hear this a lot these days. Roy mentioned that earlier. Being able to access real data instead of just guessing before making changes. But few companies and few tools can deliver the promise of reliable and quick change that adaptive trials require. Savvion's Life Science Foundation not only provides the tools for quick enablement, but also delivers quick change through complete BPM lifecycle management capabilities. As you can see here, the Life Sciences Foundation is made up of 9 major components, from solution templates, R&D dashboards, SOPs, exception resolution management to help you accelerate your time to market to deploy world-class solutions for clinical operations. Now let's drill into each major component of the Life Sciences Foundation. Solution templates. As part of the foundation, we provide many solution templates or process models out of the box. These solution templates will help jumpstart and deploy clinical trial solutions to meet your business needs in processes such as site setup during the startup stage, patient enrollment during the study conduct stage, or the patient discharge process. Not only do we supply the solution templates, but we also provide electronic binders for study startups. And for that matter, it's available for all clinical stages. So during the regulatory document reviews, you use the electronic binder to store protocol versions, all versions of the 1572, CVs, licenses for all investigators, PIs, and so on. The electronic binder helps speed up the process for getting sites ready to go, with all the complete workflow reviews so you can decide what sites and PIs you want to approve. And then from there, start the site monitoring. Once you have optimized the process, like site setup, then you can quickly deploy a process as a web application. So what I'm hearing, as we know, the backbone for clinical trial processes are essentially the same from study to study. However, every study is conducted differently with variations to the clinical trial process. You can configure the solution templates to fit the exact process needs of your study, and the changes to any part of the clinical trial process can be easily modified on the fly. So the benefit here is to reduce time to deploy best practices and configure processes to meet business needs. R&D dashboards and real-time visibility. The Life Sciences Foundation gives you real-time visibility and monitoring of key metrics across the clinical trial development phases. Easy to understand dashboards that can collect the data enter into your other enterprise systems, and compile into graphs, charts, and plots. All trial information is presented real time. Everyone from sponsor to CRO has immediate access to trial results as the trials progress. So, for example, at any one time, you will know how many patients are enrolled in the study by total and by investigator. You can then drill down to find out how many patients have been enrolled by region, investigate, and even by stratified group, or what regulatory documents from sites have not been submitted, and you can see that in an electronic binder. The dashboard and visibility allows trial managers to know the exact status of projects and identify solutions needed to get back on track if studies are delayed or more issues anticipated are arising. During these days, that's very important. So by making quicker decisions sooner rather than later, this allows the sponsor, in collaboration with the CRO, to minimize delays in the clinical trial phases and potentially save the company millions of dollars. Now, Roy mentioned some of the challenges about adaptive trials earlier, or adaptive research. Adaptive trials, which allow changing the operational plan while it's being carried out, requires the appropriate IT infrastructure in order to deliver agility and flexibility to trial processes. A BPM-enabled solution will provide this effectively to obtain study results faster, by quickly adapting to the changing business and regulatory documents or regulatory conditions. Alarms and notifications can be set so that you immediately know when your study has faced an issue or met the threshold of changes. For example, these same alarms can trigger clinical trial supply chain management to ship new doses of investigational products through a seamless integration with an IVR system, or redistribute the trial medication from one site, that site is already done, to another site. At the end of the day, this saves costs. So the changes that need months now can be delivered in days. Again, it's all about being agile and making quicker decisions. Savvion provides full audit capabilities to each step in the process. What rules were executed, which way the process branched, how long each task took to process, and who performed the task. This built-in features provide the detail needed for compliance to survive audits, either internal or by the FDA. So who did what and when, what data was changed at which step, why was a decision taken to approve a site. So the benefit here is quickly audit your process and meet 21 CFR Part 11 requirements. Let's talk a little bit about reusable UI, or user interface and business data. The Life Sciences Foundation contains several business data objects out of the box. The business data, like investigator, site coordinator, will contain several attributes, like the name, the contact information, the title. So this allows you to quickly customize existing processes and the UI to quickly build new solutions without having to start from the beginning. These UI components and business objects can be reused later in the process. On the screen here, you have a UI for site registration and all the objects that are associated with the site. You can reuse the UI and business data later in the process. Business connectors. Using business connectors, Savvion can integrate with your existing business systems. For example, our adapters support integrations to external document management systems, such as Documentum, which supports versioning to store and view regulatory documents. One of the challenges that Roy talked about was the lack of end-to-end visibility in the current solutions. With the business connectors and dashboards, the foundation allows you to leverage existing clinical trial systems and have end-to-end visibility in order for you to manage and control the process. So all the software platforms used for a typical study, IVRS, EDC, CTMS, which are normally separate, can be integrated into the foundation so that all work as an integrated process and only a single point of access is needed. The solution allows the sponsor CRO to leverage and complement their existing business system and ensure that data is captured once and reused throughout the process. Exception resolution management. There are often times when special cases occur during the process. That is not expected. That's why it's an exception. These exceptions cannot be modeled using the core or main process. For example, protocols need to be amended, extended, due to data discovery during the trials. So the ability to recognize and track when each site and patient is progressing in the base study versus the amendment allows for better management of the clinical data and a reduction in lost time, while you're waiting for stats analysis and administrative review. This is critical for the success of any adaptive research approach. We provide the functionality so that you can define a resolution process to manage these exceptions. So that's whether it's a predefined process or an ad hoc process. SOPs, or standard operating procedure, and job aid management can quickly be uploaded. You can get it reviewed and deployed on demand to a distributed team from any clinical trial or for any clinical trial process. Users such as site coordinators, site monitors can then access instructions directly related to the task at hand. So, example, if there's any changes from the sponsor or CRO in the procedure for submitting regulatory documents, a site coordinator can quickly view the updated SOP to help them with that task, thus minimizing the errors and maximizing your productivity. So to summarize, we got deep pharmaceutical expertise of Potney, along with Savvion's industry-leading business process management, enables you to address clinical operation or operational challenges. As I mentioned earlier, complete visibility and progress of a trial allows you to make faster decisions. So easily adapts and responds to changes due to adaptive trials or in operations, the policies, and clinical regulations. Helps to enforce and monitor policy and regulatory compliance with complete clinical trial and audit trail. And leverages existing systems and infrastructure investment, as we discussed earlier. So bottom line, you can cut the time and cost of clinical trials by up to 33% using a BPM-enabled solution. To learn more, you can visit www.savvion.com/life_sciences. You can also access a white paper, www.savvion.com/sponsor_CRO_collaboration, or you can contact solutions@savvion.com. Thank you very much.
All right, Sharat, thank you very much, and Roy as well, for your time. I also wanted to thank the folks at Savvion, not only for hosting just today's roundtable, but their ongoing support, bpminstitute.org. Savvion has really been one of the true pioneers in the space and continue to evolve their product to the cutting edge of what you see out in the marketplace. We're also honored to have Savvion's CEO, Dr. Katabchi, and his participation on BPM Institute's Supplier Council. And so I know Savvion is a familiar name to many of the members within our community, but we appreciate Roy and Shravna coming today to share some of your expertise specifically around life sciences. So as I mentioned at the start, we've got a few questions that we'd like to get addressed, and you guys have made some big statements, and so we'd like to challenge you on a couple of these and maybe dig into a little bit more depth. But if I could, I'd like to address a couple questions to Roy. Roy, you still with us?
Yes, I am.
All right, great. So one of the statements, Roy, that we just went through is that folks could see up to a 33% savings. Could you give us a little more background on how you came to that number, and/or have you seen that with some of the clients that you've been working with?
Sure. The 33% is actually about an average of using a good business process management solution. It's based on historical data anywhere between 25 and 60% savings reductions when companies instituted a centralized control system for their research divisions. It can be from simple cost savings, reducing overhead from shipping paper back and forth, reducing inefficiencies in multiple handoffs, trying to check the same data multiple times because of different locations. But more likely, it's reflected in the increased capacity, in the ability to leverage your resources you have to do more. BPM, if done well, provides for rapid and accurate decision-making based on the information at hand, which allows you to be more agile as an organization, to be able to adapt to the trends that you're seeing and reduce sunk costs of going down the wrong path too long. It also means that your resources can do more. They can actually do more research and focus on their core business, which is innovative solutions to the healthcare needs of the population at large. So, in short, 33% is a target. Most times I've seen companies that can get a higher return on their investment if they effectively use their information in a integrated way.
All right, great. Well, obviously, getting ROI and quick returns is high on everybody's list these days, doing more with less. Do you have any example that you can share with our members of a BPM success story with some real numbers behind it?
Well, as I think I alluded to earlier, I mentioned earlier, there was a system many years ago that I worked on that was a homegrown integrated clinical trials solution that included process monitoring and process management throughout the entire life cycle of the data. It was a pretty expensive one. It was about probably $150 million to do the entire implementation of the entire project. But that included all of the integrated systems with the data capture and all the activities as well. That directly resulted in bringing a blockbuster drug to market 90 days ahead of schedule. And after the fact, after it was deployed and started selling for a year, they calculated that it was about $36 million a day in additional revenue for those 90 days that they brought it in. So the return is significant if you hit the right product at the right spot. I can give the counter situation as well. I had another client that was working on a compound that seemed to have lots of interesting indications, about 7 actually, different things that it might have done. Unfortunately, because they didn't integrate their data effectively and weren't able to bring it all together for the strategic steering committee to make decisions, they spent about a year trying to find an indication for this product. Whereas if they would have seen all of the results together in one spot, they probably would have noticed sooner that it was not much more effective than a placebo effect. And it would have saved the company millions and also would have, more importantly, allowed these researchers to start focusing on more productive things than trying to hunt down a indication for a product that wasn't going to do much.
All right, thanks for that. We're always looking for those great examples of BPM in action, and so that's one on a very large scale. So thanks for sharing that. Sharatna, if I can, I'd like to come back to you, and you had laid out a lot of the functionality that folks can expect to get with Savvion's offerings. But could I ask you to kind of go back and maybe encapsulate for folks how BPM will yield them efficiencies and what kind of efficiencies they can expect to get?
Yeah, Greg, that's a really good question. In any organization, processes are the core elements of operations, right? So naturally, most business improvements are gained by focusing on the processes. So some of these processes are captured and automated with packaged applications in various segments of life sciences industry, such as a CTMS or IVRS in the clinical trial space, right? However, in these traditional or packaged applications, the underlying processes are hardwired, and as such really offer no flexibility and opportunity for process improvements. To get process efficiency, the emerging BPM-driven solutions provide out-of-the-box the required agility, right, along with real-time visibility within the process context that Six Sigma and other business process improvement methodologies require. And as I mentioned earlier, and I think Roy talked to this, to reach that operational excellence, your clinical trial processes need to be lean and mean. So BPM-enabled solutions provide the agility, visibility, efficiency, and at the same time allows humans and systems to work across departments and company boundaries.
All right, cool. If we can stick with that theme for a second, Sean, you touched on a couple different areas there that I know are pain points for some of our members. But can you share with us any experiences from some of your clients about, BPM? Does it require them, changing management processes in order to see these efficiency gains, or what have your customers been experiencing?
Well, you can start with no change to your processes. That is the beauty of a BPM-enabled solution compared to traditional packaged applications, as I mentioned earlier. Normally, you start with modeling your existing processes. Then you analyze and optimize them. This can be done incrementally or as little as often as you wish. That's why it's called continuous process improvement. So to avoid the operational interruption, of course, you can use our simulation tools, and that's what our customers use. It allows you to play with what-if scenarios, simulate the changes, and analyze the impact before actually implementing the change in your organization. So that's very important, right? This way, you only apply changes that produce enough benefit to justify the effort. So, our customers say, because of the process-oriented nature of clinical trial operations, BPM-enabled solutions have been proven to be the perfect fit with a very strong ROI, as Roy mentioned earlier in one of your questions.
All right, great, Sean. Thank you for that. And Roy, if I can go back to you, with your experiences, obviously folks are very sensitive to adding applications and cost and maintenance that goes along with it. Are you finding folks are still turning towards BPM without replacing existing systems, or are you also seeing that they're maybe using it to reduce the number of applications that they have?
Well, the primary focus of a BPM is not to replace your existing systems. It's not intended to do all things for all people. That's one of the problems with the organic growth that happens in some of the point solutions. A lot of times what will happen is somebody will have a clinical trial management system and try and add extra functions on that aren't what its core function is supposed to be, but are needed to integrate the data. And the systems don't effectively manage anything well if they grow past what they're supposed to. The beauty of a good BPM solution is that it's the glue between all these different applications. It allows for a single framework and a single way of evaluating the data and looking at it. BPM in its heart is an extension of your management activities. It provides you the ability to track, manage, and manipulate the information in one location so that you can actually drive the efficiencies that way. It's not to replace your given applications. It's to enhance your use of them and to capitalize on your resources more. Your core resources in an R&D organization are highly qualified, highly trained scientists. They should be focusing on science, not on hunting down the administrative data from one system to try and reconcile it with another.
All right, fair enough. And with your experiences in that space, do you think it's possible for someone to gain similar savings without a BPMS?
It's theoretically possible, yeah. I mean, there's if you have sufficient resources and you have a clear enough identification of all of the processes and you have the analytical capabilities to run the analysis on your processes and run the organization that way, Yeah, you probably could. I would tend to question, however, why you're, again, using those highly skilled analysts to manage the data of the operational state of your organization. I think they would be better served if they were working on the actual, research information itself to see that your science is more effective and that you're looking at your statistical sampling of your data versus how effectively you bring in the information in. So while, yes, you could get some of those activities without a solution, the whole premise of using a manual review process to see where the status is time-consuming, costly, and going to be extremely error-prone.
All right, I agree. Well, Roy Devine with Patney's Life Science Drug Safety and Clinical Solutions Group, and Sharatna Pat with Savvion. I'd like to thank you both for sharing your expertise with our members today. I'd like to thank our members for attending today's roundtable. I'd like to wish everybody a great summer. And for those of our members up in the Northeast, you'll have an opportunity to get together in Washington, D.C. in the middle of September, and also in New York City in the first week of November. We look forward to hosting you on a future roundtable, and thank you all very much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.